8-hour days, 5 days a week, and it's fun. People are enjoying this. But there's a day when everyone comes in when, here we go, we're gonna do this jumping around and playing, So as soon as you hit that point, you've got to be ready to shift gears for your students. You have to respond to your students. So for me, I found out that TPR works really well for that first 3 to 5 weeks. Then you've got to shift gears to meet their needs. So for me, I was wondering, what comes next? And I remember years ago, I was out doing my data searches and this and that. And, some of you guys might know or remember that some Pimsleur came through Ojibwe country years ago and did a little language series. I came upon that. And I researched this Pimsleur, and then I went back to how he developed his method. Not so much the Ojibwe thing, just overall how he came up with his process. And he said a few things that really stood out to me in his, I don't know if it was his dissertation or whatever he put together, but he said something like, in any given language, at any given time, in any given place, there's an infinite number of language possibilities. Like you could say any random word, and that's infinite. There's no limit to that. He said, but after observing in several communities around the world, it seems to be that there's about 800 to 1,200 words on average that are used for basic daily communication. And he said, and then the 20% that seems to be unique is where that language is being observed, whether it's at a restaurant or a place of worship or an airport or a school or casino or all these different forms. Well, then there's specialized language for those things. So what he said is if you focus on that 800 to 1,200 words that are used for basic daily communication, your entire vocabulary is then functional. It has a communication purpose. So if you really tune your ear to what you're hearing in the place that you're going to use language, you can target that vocabulary with your TPR and then with what comes after that. And so the whole time you're working toward functional language communication. So then in 14 months, we're not worried about learning 100% of every language possibility that there is. We're focused on these 800 to 1,200 words. That all of a sudden seems possible, right? We could probably teach and learn 800 words to communicate. And once we're proficient at that, we can then start looking at those 20% of words in these different places. Maybe you're skinning a deer or you're harvesting medicine. All these are specialized language vocabulary skills. So that's sort of the methodology that I implement to teach our language program. And once we get to that place, our teachers turn over from trainees to immersion teachers. And in that format, they've got just enough tools to survive, right? I mean, once you go from language learning as a theory to implementing 100% language immersion, you're using every tool that's been given to you through school, and then you're running in the walls every day. So as you start filling those gaps, you start to become more and more proficient at speaking the language. So that, I just wanted to throw that out there as sort of what we're doing to address a sinking ship. We're running around plugging holes in the boat, trying to make her float a little bit longer. That being said, we started in September of 2017. That means we just eclipsed our second full year of operation. We started at birth, or at least as close as you legally can, at 6 weeks old. So we've got children who are just now turning 3, and those then as young as 6 weeks old. And we have seen amazing results. I mean, we're really just starting to see the fruits of the labor as these kids are, the oldest ones are turning 3 and they're starting to understand multiple sequences of commands where you can tell them to perform 2 actions, and then there's some sort of material outcome. Do this, do that, and then come get this, or then you can do that. And we'll watch them perform the action, come come back and check, to see if they get their whatever it was. In the same sense, us second language learners, we know that like producing unsolicited 4-word sentences that are constructed well, it's a pretty amazing thing spontaneously. And then when you see these 2-year-olds that don't even have to think about it, they can just do it. That's just, for me, that's a little language victory every single day. So these are the kind of things we're starting to experience and are starting to happen in our program. I just want to throw it out there before we do a little bit of TPR, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, but we'll demo a little bit of it. TPR I like because as you learn about brain activities, it's been mentioned before, the brain likes to access patterns when it encounters new problems. And so the theology behind TPR is that your brain has already learned a language, and that language may or may not be English or whatever it is, but it did that through a pattern, and TPR seeks to mimic that pattern by first seeing and observing, then responding physically to those things, and then speech is the last outcome of that. And they say that's just the way it happened for us when we were babies. We heard it. Pretty soon we started to attach those words to what we were noticing happening, and we could then, don't touch that. The baby can't respond, but he knows if you're saying don't touch that. Pretty soon he knows enough to say don't touch that. So basically we're trying to access the brain's pattern it has already used to learn a language. That being said, that all came a mile a minute, right? How am I doing on time here? Better keep going, right? Okay. All right. So when I was studying TPR, you guys, I tried to figure out who started this thing, and I'm sure there's often debate about this, but it came back to a fella that was named James Asher, and I ended up ordering a couple of his books about his theology and methodology because I wanted to understand. And so one of the things you could do is you could order this demo video, and he was able to take a room full of international folks who spoke there was not a common language in the room, yet he was able to demonstrate this TPR to this entire room, and they all knew what he was saying and what to do. And so I was like, yup, that's it. And when you take this methodology and you use it in your own room, all of a sudden you don't need to use English with a person who may have never heard your language before. It's a pretty amazing thing. You can do this for days and even weeks. So I'll say about that much about the stuff, and if anything's interesting to you, I'll be floating around here after this, but this is what I'll show you guys about it. And again, I'm sure you aren't strangers to it. What am I looking at? 5 minutes, 3 minutes? All right, okay. So in a really quick demonstration, we're all looking here. I can go Painon, Nipita, Painon, Nipita, Pemohnenon, Nakata, Kiwata, Kuonenon, Pemohnenon, Nakata, Kiwata, Painon. Wasky what? How? Can I get 2 volunteers? How? Gusto Painon ha? Dami nagkapianan.
What?
Hey. All right, round of applause, volunteers. All right, so when you get your first volunteers, a big thing about TPR is trying to put the learner's mind at ease. You're not testing them, you're not trying to trick them, you're really trying to set them up for success. So I just demonstrated, now in the first model, you as a teacher should do that, whatever that activity is, with them, to nurture that learning, so to speak. So, Painon, nipita. Painon, nipita. Pimonenon, nakata. Kewata, kuonenon, pimonenon, nakata, kewata, painon. Wasty word. Wasty what? Can I hit the more? That's another thing. Praise is really built in. 2 more volunteers, please. 2 more volunteers. All right, come on up. So now, as you go into your third transition, you should have built some sign language to assist your learners. On this third run, you want to use your hands to reassure them. So now now you're checking a little bit. If they can do it simply by command, good. But if they can't, you are right there to quickly, kewata, whatever your hand gestures are, you're right there to nurture their learning. Now, nipita, waiskiwat, pimonenon, nakata, kewata, kuonenon. Hey, waiskiwat. We didn't plan that, I swear. Waiskiwat, pimonenon, nakata, kewata, painon. Hey, waiskiwat. All right, and so I know I'm running low on time, but as this stuff goes, all of a sudden you're able to tell them, ayom atutupikan, atutupikan, atupon, enoha atupon, hasena atupon. Enoha atutupikan, hasena atutupikan. Now when you're doing TPR, you can get them up, you can say, stand up, walk to the table, touch the table, turn, point at the chair. And now you're starting to build. I'll use this cup, this paper, and I say, pick it up, put it down. Pick it up, put it down. Pick up the paper, put the paper down. Pick up the cup, turn around, put the cup on the chair. And you start building in all of this framework for your language use. And in 3 or 4 days, your learners are really stoked about what they know. And that can build on whatever direction you take it as a TPR instructor. So that's my activity and a little bit of my story. Wow.